Well, we had planned for his autobiography for 7 years, and we started off as journalists and footballer, and we became friends. And to be honest, when he died, I never had on my mind to write this book again. But then his wife and his two best friends came to me and said to me, "This book really meant a lot to Robert. Can you please write it?" I met him actually at Benfica. I was at the time a sports correspondent for a German newspaper for Iberia, for Spain and Portugal, and I've heard about him that he seems to be a talented goalkeeper. Actually, I heard first about it when I heard the news that Alex Ferguson wanted to sign him, and I went to interview him there, and I saw him as a player, which was interesting for me. I covered him as a journalist for 7-8 years, and how he developed as a goalkeeper. Robert was always, well, in a way, an insecure goalkeeper, that he was looking at other goalkeepers, how they would play, and he was trying to learn from other goalkeepers. And in the beginning, he was a very German goalkeeper, very aggressive, trying, to look for the great save, even punching lots of balls. And moving abroad really helped him to realize that lots of times to be a try goalkeeper, you're a better goalkeeper, not to go for every cross, try to position yourself. That was his key. It became his obsession, to stand there and just not necessarily making the big save, but be right in the right position to catch the ball. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. I had a vague feeling, like any other people maybe on the street, thinking, I know what depression is about. It's about when people are sad. Well, it's not about that. It's about it's about not being able to control your brain anymore, not being able to get up in the morning anymore, because your brain is chemically changed, basically. You're not able to emphasize anymore, to feel empathy. So I learned a lot about the disease. I spoke to psychiatrists, I spoke to Robert's psychiatrist, and I read books about it. And it's, it still feels hard to admit that I've taken something good away from working it. But I certainly have taken away, having learned a lot about the illness.
How did his time at Barcelona go when he played for them? A success or not?
Well, I think his time of Barcelona triggered his first clinical depression, because he came to Barcelona, and I clearly remember the first day we met in Barcelona after he signed. It was a summer day, and I never seen him that happy. We went for lunch at a nice restaurant, and he didn't want to go home. He sat in a coffee shop in the sun, just smiling and beaming all the time. And I remember his quote was like, "I don't know why, I just feel happy about everything." And he didn't make it at Barcelona as a number one goalkeeper. And he blamed himself so much for that that really triggered his first clinical depression. And it tells you a bit about the disease, that most of the time it's coming from the inner self. He never talked about it to me, and I think it tells you a bit about the illness, that people who suffer from depression feel awkward, they don't feel confident to talk about it. I think Robert in total maybe just told 10 people. I remember one or two moments, particularly one moment on the phone in 2008, in hindsight, where he came close to opening up to me, telling it to me, and suddenly he said to me, "Ronnie, my wife Teresa, we are just talking. We got a vague feeling that you might know something." And I said, "What do you mean? What do I know?" And suddenly he lost courage again to open up about it. So it's an illness because it affects our most intimate part, our brain. And people who suffer from depression most of the time, or lots of time, wrongly blame themselves to suffer from the disease. And I'm just afraid that people would look at them as a weirdo, which is not the case. It's an illness like cancer, and anybody can be affected by it, certainly.
Clinical depression doesn't care about how much you earn or what you do for a living, does it?
No, you put it very well. Clinical depression is a disease which can affect anybody in any ways of life, and it shows you that what we value as great quality of life, like being a professional footballer, doing what you love to do, earning good money, having a great family, doesn't prevent the disease to break out. And there are many examples, not even in sports, of great people like Winston Churchill, we're here in England, who suffered from depression at a time when he was maybe at his height as a politician.
Do the German sports authorities deal with these problems better than here in England, or elsewhere in Europe?
I'm definitely not confident to compare Germany to any other countries because I wouldn't know enough about England or the US or whatever. What I think I can say is that in Germany a lot has changed after Robert's death. Now that doesn't bring Robert back to us. It's still a sad feeling that he had died. But somebody suffering from any kind of mental illness in sports in Germany should feel confident at the time to open up and have a treatment and approach his illness. And just to give you an example, last night I spent till 2 o'clock in the morning sitting in a restaurant in Barcelona with a football agent who came to see me because he was afraid that one of his players was suffering from a depression, and he told the managing director of this Bundesliga side, and they immediately contacted a sports psychiatrist. And that wouldn't have happened like 3 years ago. They would have just came up with a quote like "pull yourself together," and these times are thankfully gone. This idea really meant a lot to him, particular, or for one reason, because he felt he could never tell anybody about his depression as Germany's #1, and he felt this book was a kind of a goal that one day when his career was over he could tell about his depression in this book. And when he sadly died, and it was clear that we would never be able to write a book with a happy end, how Robert had overcome his depression, I was left to write the same book with a quite different ending. I can just talk about Robert's case, and it's obviously a question I ask myself, or anybody close to him asks himself every day. What could we have done differently? And obviously there are things which we could have done differently, but the shocking bottom line is that Robert did everything right. He had treatment, he had medical treatment, he went to see a psychiatrist, he had friends around him, an inner circle who knew about the illness, who were trying to help him. So he did everything which he was supposed to do, and still he wasn't able to defeat that disease. With that book, it meant more to me than any of my other book because of the subject I had to write about Robert, and it felt like the last thing I had to do for Robert. So this book was quite an obsession. I wanted to get it right, and this is even intriguing and heartwarming that some people proved in some way to me that in some way I've got it right. I've got a picture of him at the wall of my office, and I look at him lots of times, and sometimes I've got a feeling as he's speaking back to me and slagging me off for some small stuff in the book which I maybe haven't got just right. It's hard to say, I'm very proud and thrilled with the reactions I've got from people, and one particular quote from a woman who knew him a bit stands out to me. She said to me, reading the book, almost on every part of it, even in the sad parts, I could hear Robert smiling reading it, and I think that's a very nice compliment.